Hi there, we're going live. I'm just a few minutes early, so I'm waiting for people to come in. Just a few minutes early, waiting for people to get on and making sure that everything's linked in. How's everyone doing today? Hi Lolette, good to see you here. Thanks so much for your support. Just sent my pencil flying, so I'm going to pull out another one. Good thing I always come prepared. There we go. We're getting some more people coming in. Send us a quick message and let us know who's here so we can say hello. Oh, hi guys. It's good to see the Zieglers joining us. Ezra and Audra, thank you guys so much for coming. I'll be so excited when we can see you guys in person at some point. Just giving people a minute to show up. I know this week is technically spring break for Philadelphia kids. I know that doesn't mean as much these days. I'm having trouble telling the difference between weekdays and weekends. But we planned a couple of workshops this week that are focused on kind of play and games to try to honor that spring break feeling. So the one we're doing today is called Wacky Wordplay, and it's going to be kind of a fun Mad Lib style game. So if you've ever played Mad Libs, we're going to learn how to make our own, which will be kind of fun. I'm going to give it just another minute or so before we really get started. The good thing is today, the only materials you really need are a pencil. I accidentally, before most people got on, I threw mine across the room, so I grabbed another one. Not on purpose. And then either the printout or even just some blank paper with maybe lines on it. You can always look at the instructions for this digitally if you need to, if you can't print out at home. I know not everyone has a working printer at home. So I'm just going to give it another minute or so. How's everyone doing out there? Did they get out and enjoy the nice weather yesterday? It was so beautiful. Oh yeah, I know. I haven't had a chance to get outside today yet because I was getting ready for this, but hopefully this afternoon I'll go sit in my little back patio area. Hi, Beck and Mika. Glad to hear you guys have been enjoying the sun. Now the good thing about the activity today is that after we go through it, you can actually take it outside and sit in your backyard or on your front steps or wherever is safe. And you could do some of the writing out there to enjoy the sun. It's not something that requires being indoors. So that's a good thing about this activity today. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And anybody who comes later can always go back and replay. So like I said, the only two materials you need today are a pencil, and I do recommend using a pencil instead of a pen for this one, because we're going to do some erasing to do this activity. So I would recommend a pencil, with a good eraser. Then also either the printouts with the template, or if you aren't able to print out at home, you can always just use some lined paper. I recommend lined paper because we're going to be writing a story and then taking away some of the words. Oh, hi Cecilia, good to see you too. So now we'll get started. First thing, I want to start off by introducing myself. Some of you guys may know me. My name is Ms. Liz, also known as Elizabeth Encarnacion. I'm the program director here at Spells Writing Lab, and I'm also a longtime children's book author and editor. I mentioned the materials today. Today we're going to be doing some Mad Lib style stories. We're calling them Wacky Wordplay stories. If you're familiar with Mad Libs, they are stories that have, they're a normal story, but they have words missing, and they have blank lines in place of those words. And they have descriptions of what type of word you're supposed to fill in there. So, for example, it might be a noun, it might be a famous person from history, it might be someone in this room, or an action, that type of thing. And the idea is that the person who is playing the Mad Lib doesn't know what the story is really about until they've already supplied all of those missing words. So that way, when you actually go through and read the story with their filled in words, they end up being pretty ridiculous and hilarious. We play a lot of these types of games at Spells. Some of you guys may be familiar with Franken stories, which we do when we go into classrooms. That's another game where you don't know what's happening in a story, but you add on to it. This is just like a different way of doing that. So the main thing about this game, to play it, you're going to need to be a little familiar with some of the different types of words and how you use them. For example, nouns. Most of you guys probably know what a noun is. What does a noun do in a sentence? It tells a person, place, or thing, right? So it might be something like teacher or dog. It might be the moon. It might be ancient Egypt. It might be, my house. It might be Philadelphia. Or it could be an object like a pencil, a baseball bat, a rock. It could be, a leaf, that type of thing. It could even be a type of animal. It could be all different things like that. Now, sometimes when we're playing Mad Libs, the story might ask for a more specific type of noun, such as a body part, in which case you can choose like an ear, your head, your hand, your fingernail, anything like that. It might ask for an article of clothing. So it may just, for certain parts of the story, it may make sense to give something that's more specific. So you could do like an article of clothing. It could be a sock or underwear or a shirt. So when you're doing this, think about person, place, or thing. That's what a noun is. Any questions with that? Let me know in the comments. I'll look. Now, sometimes they ask for what's called a proper noun. Now, a proper noun is also a noun, but it names a very particular person, place, or thing. And it always begins with capital letters at the beginning of the word. So, for example, if it's a specific person, if you were naming my name, Ms. Liz, it starts with a capital M, then it has a capital L for Liz, right? That's a proper noun. That way you know exactly which person you're talking about. Another example might be Alexander Hamilton. It might be a place name like Philadelphia, Los Angeles, ancient Egypt. Those are all capitalized at the beginning of those words, and they are proper nouns because they are talking about a specific place, not just a type of place. Something like Kleenex. If you're saying tissue, that's a generic term. That means tissue is just what that object is. But a lot of people will call it Kleenex. That's the brand name. That is a specific brand of tissue. So if you're using Kleenex in a sentence, you're supposed to capitalize it. That is a proper noun. It's supposed to be capitalized. It's specific. So if the instructions ask for a proper noun, you're going to think about some of those very specific nouns that have a capital letter at the beginning. If you have an adjective is a word that describes a noun, right? So it might be something like soft, delicious, gorgeous, silly. A lot of times it helps me to think in my head of a noun and then think of a way to describe it. So for example, if I thought, okay, I need to come up with an adjective, pizza is a noun. Let me see, how would I describe a pizza? Salty, right? Delicious, steaming. I don't know, any of those types, steamy, that type of thing. If you're looking for a verb, you'd be thinking of an action word. Now, verbs can also be what we call state of being verbs. They can be things that just connect two ideas together. But when you're playing Mad Libs, you usually want an action. And a lot of times you want an action that doesn't need an object. So if you have to say, like, if you're thinking of a verb and it needs to have a noun after it to show what you did that to, it's probably not the best choice. My husband and I discovered that last night while we were playing a sample version of this. So try to think of a verb that can kind of stand on its own. So run, right? You can run, and then that's all you need to say. You can have kick. You can have sleep, that type of thing. Now, sometimes when we have verbs in Mad Lib style stories, we need to know what tense it is so it makes sense in the sentence, right? So if it says past tense, that means make it sound like it happened before. Make it sound like it happened yesterday. So a lot of times, not for every verb, but sometimes that means adding an ed on the end, right? It could be like, instead of sleep, slept. Instead of run, ran. But instead of kick, kicked, right? So you just want to make sure that it sounds like it happened before, so that it fits into the sentence correctly. Another type of verb sometimes we think about having is, sometimes we'll say an ing, a verb that ends in ing. Now, we don't mean like sing. We mean like singing. We're dancing. We're running. It means something that's happening now and it's continuing to happen. So that's what we mean when we say an ing verb. Now, finally, we have adverbs. Now, you notice adverb sounds a little bit like adjective, but then it has the word verb in it, right? So it is a word that describes either a verb or another adverb. It basically answers the question of like how, where, when, why, or how much something happened. So for example, if your sentence is talking about I ran, that's kind of boring, right? If you want to describe how did you run, I ran quickly. So quickly is an adverb that's describing the verb ran, right? Now, not always, but especially when you're thinking about this type of story game, a lot of times the adverbs you choose, you're going to want them to end in ly. So a lot of adverbs do end in ly, and you're going to kind of want to think about maybe that's an easy way to pick an adverb. So things like slowly, forcefully, quickly, beautifully, those types of words are adverbs. They describe either an action or another adverb. Are there any questions about those? I know I ran through them really quickly, but the good thing is they're also on the sheet that we gave you guys. So if you need a reminder of what those different parts of speech, what those different types of words are, you can always look at this explanation here, and we give you examples and we define it. Okay? So, now that we've thought about those different categories, and trust me, that's the boring part, I know. So, then we're going to think about how do you use those to play the game. Now, we gave you guys a sample story and worksheet in your packet. Now, don't look at the story yet. Decide whether you're playing this by yourself, which you can totally do, or if you're going to try to play it with a family member. And the idea is what you're going to do is you're not going to look at the story, you're only going to look at this list of words. This is a list of what types of words whoever's playing needs to supply, okay? Now, in this case, I worked with my husband, and he came up with ideas for words for those different categories. So for example, a verb ending in ing, he came up with singing. Then he came up with a noun. Number 2 says noun, carrot. Number 3, adjective, he said delicious. Number 4, a famous person from history, and he said Thomas Edison. So it keeps on going like that, and you're just going to either write down your own ideas for each of these things, or you're going to write down whoever you're playing with's ideas. Now once you write down all of those words, then that's when you can go and connect them to the story. And you notice number 1 right here, I'm trying to figure out where my camera is, number 1 right there is a verb ending in ing, and we said singing. So then you're going to start reading the story, right? And in this story, the unlucky penny, I was number 1 to school when I found a number 2 on the ground. So you're going to substitute in what they put for those numbers. So in this case, it would be I was singing to school when I found a carrot on the ground. And obviously that's not what the original story said, but it's funny. So you go through and you would add in those missing words based on the numbers here into your story. Are there any questions about that? And the stories will end up being really funny. So you don't have to necessarily play it all right now, but that is how you play a Mad Lib style story. Is basically you don't look at the story yet, because you want that to be hidden, because it's no fun if someone puts in the right kind of word there, right? I mean, you want them to put the right type of word, but you don't want them to put the word that actually belongs there, the missing word. You want them to put something that's a bit sillier. So after you play that, if you want to make your own, here's how I do it. And we gave you guys a blank list to make your word list and a blank piece of paper for writing your story. Now, for my example, I was trying to think of, okay, what kind of story could I write? Now, when you're sitting down to write a story, maybe you already have an idea for a story, maybe you don't. You could think of maybe writing fairy tales, nursery rhymes. You could use those storytelling cards we made 2 weeks ago and use them for inspiration. You could think about maybe, remember that first week when we did time travel? Maybe you think about time traveling to another location and using that as your setting and creating a story. Also, just in case you're really stuck, we added a few prompts here on the page. Just a few ideas to get you started. Maybe you'll think of something else. So all you need to do is write a story. It should be about maybe 3 paragraphs, I'd say. You want it to be long enough that you can get a nice list of words. I would say at least 10. Most Mad Lib stories actually have about 20. You see that's how many we have in the example. If that's too much for you, that's fine. Make a shorter story and but try to get at least 10, because if you only have a couple of words that are missing, it's not as much fun to play the game. So you're going to want your story to be long enough that you can take out 10 important words and replace them, and it'll be a funny story. So first you're going to write your story. I just started mine, just as an example. You're going to write your story first. Then you're going to go back through it, and you're going to start circling key words. Now when I say keywords, I mean you're not going to circle the word a, or the word then, or was, those types of words. You're going to circle kind of the more interesting words. Like, I started mine, I decided to write about the 3 little pigs. So when I wrote about the 3 little pigs, I started the story this way. Once upon a time, there was a very hungry wolf. He stalked through the woods looking for something to eat. Soon he came upon a small house made of straw. So that's how far I got right now. So after I wrote the whole story, what I would do is I would go through and circle the key words that I want to replace in that story and have someone substitute weird words for. So I'm looking at the first sentence and I say, once upon a time there was a very hungry wolf. I'm going to circle the word hungry. And I'm going to put a number 1 next to it. So you can see that I did that right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what type of word is that. Hungry. What is it? It seems like it's not a noun. It's not a verb. Seems like it's describing something. I think it's describing the word wolf. Wolf is a noun. I know that because it's an animal, so it's a thing. So I'm going to say that hungry is an adjective. So once I figure that out, I'm going to go over here on my list, and I numbered that number 1. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write down adjective next to number 1 on my list. So that's the first type of word that whoever's playing my game is going to need to supply. So then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go stalked. I know what that is. I like that word. I'm going to circle that word and I'm going to put a number 2 there. So stalked through the woods. That is stalking. It's an action, right? So that is a verb. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write verb on my list. Then I'm going to go through the woods looking for something to eat. Soon he came upon I think I'm going to do the house. I'm going to do small. No, actually, you know what? I was debating between small and house. Which one do I want to erase? I don't know. Came upon I think I'm going to do the adjective. I'm going to do small. I'm going to circle small. And I'm going to put a 3 there. And small is describing the size of the house. House is a noun. That's a place. So I'm going to do an adjective again. And then straw. I think straw would be a funny one because I can just imagine people saying that it's made out of some funny material. So I'm going to do number 4. Straw is a noun. So here's my list so far. And I'm going to keep going as I write my story. And here what I'm going to do is I have these numbered. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase those words. So I'm going to get rid of hungry. I'm going to leave a blank. I'm going to get rid of stalked, and I'm just going to leave a blank with the number 2. And I'm going to get rid of small, and I'm going to leave a blank with the number 3. I'm going to get rid of straw. I'm going to leave a blank with the number 4. So you see how now my story is starting to look more like the sample story that we had here, where there were blanks with numbers. So that is how you're going to make your own Mad Lib. So you'll just keep writing your story, taking out words, and figuring out what type of word they are. Now maybe, remember, if you want to have like a specific name of a character, you can do a proper noun. You can do you could say city if you want it to if your story takes place in a very specific city or era or that type of thing. You can be a little more specific, but a lot of times it's really funny if you leave it fairly open-ended. So just adjective, verb, adverb, noun, those types of things. Now, after you do this, you can play this game the exact same way you would the sample one we did. In fact, you can make more than one if you want. You can make lots of silly stories. Another idea I had is after you make your own story, you could also think about taking a classic work of fiction that you like, maybe copy a few paragraphs from that and play this game with that. That might be a fun way to play the game as well, is to take several famous paragraphs from something like Harry Potter, or I have Anne of Green Gables up here, or something like that, and then copying a few of those paragraphs and then taking out words and replacing them with the Mad Lib list like this. So there are lots of different ways to play this game. Like I said, you can do it with your own stories. You can do it with stories that other people have written. Another great thing about this game is you don't just have to play it with people in your own house. This is a great game for playing with people at a distance. Maybe you want to play with your cousins or with your grandmother or someone like that who you can't see right now. That's okay. You could play this game by email, text message, phone call, or video call. All you would need to do is just type up your list of types of words and they can just send you back number 1, this word, number 2, this word. And that way you can fill in the story and then call them and read the story out to them so that you guys can all enjoy how funny it ends up. I am not seeing many comments, so I don't know if Facebook is being weird and not showing them, or if you guys are just busy working on these Mad Libs already. So let me know if you guys have any questions or if you have any suggestions or ideas. Like I said, the good thing about this game is this is a game you can keep playing over and over again. You could actually play the same one with different people. So after I create mine, I can just print out another list of these words, or I can even write their new answers from someone else, an unsuspecting person who hasn't already seen my story. I could just keep writing down different people's ideas of how to fill in the words and play the same story over and over again. So you don't even have to write too many stories. Yeah, feel free to start. I'm mostly just wondering if anybody has any questions. And then, this is something that's probably going to take longer than we're going to be live streaming. So feel free to get started. Let me know if you have any questions. And I hope we'll see you guys again on Thursday when we're going to come up with some other games that you can play while you're at home during spring break. Are there any questions about how to create your own Mad Libs or how to play the game? By the way, I did want to give credit. Our Drexel Co-op intern, Maritza Lohman, who you guys saw last Tuesday, this was her idea and she put this workshop together. So thank you to Maritza. Show her some love. And she has a few more workshops in the can that we'll be bringing out to you guys in the next few weeks. So she worked really hard last week and this past weekend to get material ready for you guys, even though her internship ended over a week ago. So huge kudos to her and our intern Nicole, both of whom put in a lot of work even after they were officially off the clock. We really appreciate their help. Yay, I see a heart that I assume is for those guys. Well, thank you guys. Yeah, I see more hearts. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'd love to know how this goes for you guys. Feel free to, if you want Dr. Spells or me to fill out your story, feel free to message us a list of the words that you want us to fill in, a list of the different types of words. We will fill it out and send it back so that you can enjoy what our silly answers are. So you could either post that on Facebook for people to do, or you could also, like I said, message us on our page, because we would love to play some of your Mad Lib games. I know Dr. Spells was he loves funny stories, and he especially loves funny stories where people don't know how their ideas are going to be used, because it's always very funny. So thank you guys so much, and hopefully I will see you on Thursday for Indoor Olympics. Bye. Thank you so much.